Welcome to Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where you get unconventional insights into retirement and lifestyle design that actually work. You don't have to settle for the same tired Wall Street advice. Break away from the herd and learn how to achieve the retirement lifestyle of your dreams. And now, here's your host, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
All right, that's my cue, the income engineer. Yes, that's me, Kraig Strom, back on Personal Pension Radio. Someone asked me again, the income engineer title. Yes, it is actually registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office as a registered mark. Just love that title. Had one of those moments, I call them ADHD moments, and thought about that several years ago, driving back towards my house, and the income engineer was born thanks to good attorneys who helped to get those kind of things done. So I am Kraig Strom, as I just said, broadcasting from the Personal Pension Radio Studio Workshop here in Southern California. Now, another piece, as I say Southern California, that I want my podcast audience to know is that I work with people all across the country. Thanks to technology nowadays, the world is a very small place. I have assistants, for example, that work in other countries, and I can simply call them using Skype, for example, and whammo, we're talking on the phone just like they're across town. It might be a little bit delayed sometimes, but most of the time, the world is very small nowadays. So I can work with people and help people in all parts of the United States. So please don't let that be my Southern California address be any kind of a hindrance to you as far as reaching out if you want help, if you have questions. You can go to Personal Pension Radio and check it out. Now, I want to jump right in because I'm excited, as always. I'm very excited about this show. I get fired up when I get ready for this show. So what is the show all about? Making sure that everybody remembers that, because I got to keep driving this point home. The show is about the retirement income side of the retirement conversation. The Wall Street machine, the education and the marketing and everything that goes behind the Wall Street machine is about accumulation, investment returns, save more money. And even from the non-investment side of the world, from the life insurance world, for example, there's this message that is focused on product and product, saying that this investment, this 401k is the solution to retirement. This life insurance is the solution to retirement. This real estate or annuities or this or that. None of these things by themselves will actually help you optimize retirement income. You have to have an integrated approach. I've talked about this a number of times recently, for example, that life insurance is being sold as this magical retirement investment that is so much better than a 401k or better than this or better than that. The important thing that at least I try and tell people, and this is where I have a difficulty sometimes, is that my message is contrary to both sides of the discussion. You've got the investment folks that say, oh, life insurance is terrible, and you come over here, the investments are the best way to go. And then you get the life insurance folks that say, no, now those investments are terrible. You've got to come over here. This life insurance thing is so much better. And then I come along and say, well, those are both wrong. They are. They're just flat out both wrong. Investments, whatever it is, stocks, bonds, real estate, investments in general are absolutely important, critical parts of a retirement journey. Life insurance, on the other hand, is another very important part of an integrated approach to a retirement income plan. Absolutely. 401k, real estate, annuities, all of those things, they all have their place in a well-crafted retirement income plan. And if you have not heard that, if you have not heard your investment person talking about how life insurance or annuities could play a very important role in your retirement income plan, well, I would really seriously suggest that you do not have a retirement income planner on your team. You don't have someone that is truly helping you prepare for maximum income. Because the truth of the matter is, all of these things are important to an optimized retirement income plan. And this show is absolutely meant to give you hope for retirement. So if you haven't already asked your investment professional, how much income can I have in retirement? What's my income plan look like? I would encourage you to go do that now, immediately, right away. Don't wait. This show comes out on Mondays. Every Monday, perfect day. Take action. Send an email to your investment advisor and say, hey, how much income can I plan on having in retirement if we keep saving the amount of money that we're saving? Get the answer back. And gosh, if you get the answer back from the typical Wall Street trained financial advisor, you will not like it. I'm actually going to give you an example today of just that kind of a conversation. So, this show, absolutely about optimizing, maximizing retirement income. It just doesn't happen with a product. It doesn't happen with a 401k or it doesn't happen with those things one at a time. They have to be put together in an actual income strategy. That's my specialty, hence the title, The Income Engineer. Now, quick disclosure, as always, I am not an attorney. I am not a CPA, a certified public accountant. I am a certified financial planner professional. That just means that I've worked my butt off to get the top level credentials in the financial services world. But that does not mean that you should act on anything that you hear on this show as if it was advice. Please, please, dear goodness me, do not act on things that you hear from financial entertainers either. Financial entertainers are people like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman who have no licensing, no regulatory oversight. They don't have anybody watching out for your best interest, and those people can say whatever they want under First Amendment protection. Now, most of the time, that's good basic advice, but unfortunately, some of the advice that these financial entertainers give out is hugely wrong. It's just not good at all. The whole point of this is, please do not act on advice that you hear on this show or things that, let me restate that. Please don't act on things that you hear on this show as if it was advice for you. Please meet with a qualified financial advisor. And hey, full disclosure, I would love that advisor to be me. Remember, I can work with people all around the country. We can have a nice conversation. Let's talk about it. Now, on to the show. Segment 1 is watch your step today. Watch your step. Last week, I talked about financial entertainer damage control, right? This idea that the financial entertainers in the world are saying things that just don't hold up when it comes to the retirement income conversation. So I'm constantly on the lookout for this. And funny enough, today, as I prepared for this podcast, I come across the Bloomberg article on how to retire and just the whole kind of retirement topic. And there's more and more and more talk. Now, this is actually a Bloomberg article, which then had another link in it, which led me to this title. But just this overall broad point that there's a lot more talk out there about the air quotes, new way to retire, the new way to retire. Rather than a linear approach, you could work, retire, etc., ongoing. You could work and retire. The whole point is, well, maybe you're just not going to retire at the typical linear track. The linear track is I'm going to work, and I'm going to get to the point where I'm 60, 65 years old, and then I'm going to retire and just enjoy the rest of, the last half of my life. Well, this conversation, this idea of work, retire, rinse, and repeat is starting to get a lot more traction. I'm starting to see it in more and more places. Now, I don't personally disagree with the idea of work, retire, but I am cynical when the message comes from the Wall Street marketing machine. So I do take a look at things from a different perspective. So here's my perspective. I'm not saying that work and retire, and then maybe retire again and work again. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad direction. Heck, I might be on track for that myself. So I just want you to look at it perhaps from a different perspective. And here's my take on it. If the retirement system is broken, if there legitimately is a retirement income crisis in America, which absolutely there is, we've got so many people retiring financially unprepared. They are retiring on the 401k for the first time. This is the first generation to ever attempt to retire on the 401k because most people don't have pensions anymore. It's not working. So people are having to work longer, not by choice, but because they have to. So now I'm hearing more about this work and retire. Well, think about that. Doesn't that actually fit better for the Wall Street marketing machine? If you don't just flat out start taking money out of the system, if you instead leave money in the system forever in one way or another, who does that really benefit? If you and I, if we work, retire, saving along the way, every time we go back to work, we save more money, and then we retire, but we go back to work and save more money, who does that benefit? Who's the ancillary beneficiary of that? Well, of course, the Wall Street investment machine gets this longer-term inflow of retirement money rather than just this steady outflow that is currently on track. So I am just, again, my cynical side when it comes to any kind of a message that's being put out there by Wall Street trained financial professionals. Like, where's this message coming from? Who benefits from this message? Work, retire. Well, I would submit to you that that's a great marketing pitch. It's a great education pitch that really does benefit Wall Street if you think about it. Not that you shouldn't consider it. I love the idea of working and then retiring and going off and starting another project or starting a different kind of a business and supplementing your income with things like Airbnb or even driving for Uber. There's a number of people that I've heard stories of retirees that drive for Uber or Lyft because they enjoy getting out and meeting people and doing stuff, and they can do it in their own car. So there's any number of ways that you can work, retire, and repeat. Okay. So I'm just looking at where this message is coming from. I'm going to predict right here on the show that you're going to hear that more and more. You're going to hear that new way to retire is just keep working. Okay. Now, this next piece I want to share because I've heard it over and over and over again, but it came up. I want you to watch your step when it comes to taxes. Here's my question for you. As you're on the treadmill, running down the road, as you're driving your car, keep both hands on the wheel. Here's the question. Will taxes be lower when you retire? Okay. Will taxes be higher or lower in the future? What do you think? Now, I've asked that question for years and years and years, and I have never gotten anybody that say taxes will be lower in the future. Everybody universally has agreed that taxes in one form or another will be higher in the future. Now, this question comes up because of something happening with actually one of my clients. And it's a really tough story. This husband and wife retired, and the answer to the question, will taxes be lower when you retire, depends on whether your spouse is still alive. In one respect, whether your spouse is still alive has a huge impact on the tax bill that you might be stuck with. And so here's the thing. My clients, husband and wife, they're doing well together, and then she got ill, kind of a mysterious illness. And the next thing you know, she's on the operating table, and she died during surgery. And all of a sudden, she's gone. That was not part of the plan. He was just grief-struck, just absolutely devastated. There was no way in the world that she was ever supposed to go before him. That's it. So here we are now, a year after she passed away. He is still very much upset, still very emotional. But here's the salt in the wound. The salt in the wound is that they together had a healthy, not rich retirement income, but a healthy retirement income. He was one of those rare folks who still had a pension. He had a nice pension coming in, and she had a pension coming in that goes to him now. But here's the sad part. As a single man, with all of his income, his tax rate went up. His taxes are higher today than they were as a comparison with the two of them. It's just terrible. And it makes him so mad because he never liked paying taxes in the first place. But now that he gets the report from his accountant that his tax rate went up and he lost his wife, are you kidding me? He is just furious. So unfortunately, his story is not uncommon. How many times have I met people that are in retirement, whether together or not together anymore, and their tax bill is the same or higher than it was when they were working? Because think about it, folks. No 401k contributions to deduct, no children to deduct, maybe no home mortgage to deduct, just no business expenses to deduct, and yet all of your income coming in could be taxable, right? So remember that. Watch your step. Think about taxes from a different perspective. Will taxes be lower in the future is the question I started this section with. And the answer is universally no. It's generally not. People don't think that they'll be lower. So don't be sucked into this idea that you think that, or that someone tells you that taxes will be lower in the future. Who says? I haven't met anybody where that's really happened. And if taxes are lower, doesn't that mean that you're making less money? Well, that's not a fantastic goal to shoot for either. Okay, now, finally, this is actually another Bloomberg thing that caught my eye. It must have been a Bloomberg morning, right? It says, think you're set for retirement? Don't get too comfortable. That was the title of the article that caught my eye. Think you're set for retirement? Don't get too comfortable. Now, no matter what side of the election that you came down on, this is not political. It is a reality that the Trump effect has served up a really good dose of economic optimism. Okay, now optimism is a good thing, but it leads back to that thing that we dealt with in 2000s, we dealt with in 2008, was irrational exuberance, this overconfidence, okay? This article cited a BlackRock study. Now, BlackRock is the largest money manager in the world nowadays, and they point out that retirees and future retirees are being overconfident about future market returns. So they interviewed all of these folks that are retirees or, retiring soon, future retirees, and most of them surveyed were very confident about future returns from the market. Very confident. Here's the piece that Bloomberg points out, that most of the people surveyed, although they are confident, did not know that Wall Street as a whole expects notably lower market returns in the future. notably lower. Wall Street is publicly, it's out there. You can find it easily that Wall Street as a whole expects notably lower market returns in the future. It's a fact. It's out there. Okay. And yet, the people surveyed were super optimistic about their retirement. Oh, the income's going to be great. The returns are going to be great. Irrational exuberance, folks, is the killer of wealth. It's the killer of retirement income. Please, I'm not wanting to be negative here. What I want to do is bring you back to reality. Bring you back to reality a bit, a little bit of a gut check to say, if you're in this boat where you've got this optimistic Trump effect, right? Economic optimism, step back for a moment and remember, you've got to get yourself positioned to pay attention to the messages that are not getting the big headlines. Wall Street expects notably lower market returns. Don't see that headline very often nowadays, right? That's not a very fun headline. So my advice, please stay diligent and plan your accumulation and your income carefully. Don't fall into this irrational exuberance trap. Now, finally, listener question. I promised to go into this. This is actually something that came out of the financial entertainer damage control and the 4% rule that I mentioned just recently. The 4% rule explained. Okay, I'm not going to take some deep history lesson into it. I'm going to actually give you an example of a car dealership owner. So this is a car dealership owner. We'll just say this is a franchise car dealership owner. Franchise meaning one of the big car dealerships like Hyundai or Ford or Chevy. Those are franchise car dealerships. Okay, so this guy and his wife, 46 years old and 47 years old. So young, successful, to get a car dealership franchise, to be there at age 46, that's pretty darn good. Now, their goal is to retire with their current income. Now, so they're 46 years old. They're planning on that linear retirement. They'd like to get out sometime around 60, 65. So their plan is to retire with their current income. So that's an important point. That's about, let's say, 20 years from now. They want to just they'd be happy to have the income that they currently enjoy from the business. The income that they enjoy from the business today is $400,000. That's a very healthy income. And yet, 20 years from now, that may not be nearly as much as we think it is, right? We think, wow, what does $400,000 buy with inflation and everything 20 years from now? But here's the logic for them. Without kids and without the mortgage and without, just a variety of other things, they'll be very comfortable with a $400,000 income. So they actually are comfortable with the idea of retiring on, I'm sure at that time, will be less than what they're making, 18, 19 years from now. Okay, so just keep that in mind. This $400,000 income target is a big number, but I want you to think about your own personal situation. Take off, subtract 100,000 from that. Maybe you only make 100,000. Maybe you only make 90,000. Remember, all of the numbers are relative. The economics are the same. It doesn't matter how big the income number is. It doesn't matter how big the assets are. The economics are the same. You have to apply them to your situation. So these folks have this goal to retire with today's income. Now, rather than choose some random retirement income calculator to give them an idea of what they're on track for, because this is what I want to make sure that it's clear, there's lots and lots of different retirement calculators out there. And rather than give this example with one of those, I actually use the retirement planning tool offered by their own National Dealer Association. Okay? So a couple of the assumptions, though, these fixed assumptions in this retirement calculator, this retirement tool that is available only to these folks, okay? was life expectancy first. Life expectancy was set at age 85. Okay, age 85. Now you might be looking or thinking about, 85. Well, that sounds pretty old. That's a good number. Well, the fact is, though, at a husband and wife married in retirement, there is a significant chance that one of them could live to be 90 plus years old, right? So when we're doing a retirement income calculation, we're not doing that calculation for one person. We're doing it for two lives. So we have to look at the possibility that one of these people could live to be 90 plus years old. So age 85, that's our first problem. It's like a hard stop at age 85. I don't think so. Now, the other piece that I had a problem with was the linear rate of return. So this particular retirement calculator gave the rate of return classified as moderately aggressive at 6.7. That really wasn't my issue, 6.7. So when I printed out this retirement planner, the issue I had, and I'm looking at it now, the issue I had was that it gave a linear rate of return. The investment earnings had no down years. So in this projection that the retirement planning calculator is using, it actually had no negative years, no losing years. The investment world doesn't work that way. So that was a big deal. And I expected it to be a big deal, but I don't know that I've seen that before. But yet there's 1,000 different retirement calculators out there. And this one is exactly the same, exactly that way. It actually gave a 6.7 rate of return, which is not, super aggressive. So I was happy with that. But then I flipped over the page a couple of times and it was a linear return. A linear return that said, you're never going to lose money according to this calculator. So those are my first big problems with it. So here's what happened, okay? So remembering, this is a discussion about the 4% rule in the real world. This is something that this card dealer and his wife, they would actually have this conversation because the investment advisory, group that this dealer association works with uses this retirement planning tool. So here's what it looks like. Because the income that they want is significant in retirement, remember $400,000, but they only really want income to match what they're at today. So years and years from now, that $400,000 number is not going to be nearly as big in the real world. So here's what the retirement planning calculator came up with. Oh, and by the way, they're going to save aggressively. They're going to save a lot. They're going to save a lot of their current income. But what we find out was that aggressive savings plan was not enough to get them to the income they hoped for. The income that came out of this calculator was only $244,000. What percentage was that? Remember, this is a discussion about the 4% rule. Well, sure enough, that is a 4.65% of their investments. 4.65% of their investments. Why 4.65 and not 4%? Or what was the age that they used? Age 85. Age 85, a 4.65% income rate. That's very important terminology. 4% rule is not a investment return number. It is a withdrawal number. It is an income draw number. So 4.65 is the number that this retirement planning tool came up with, but that was only going to yield an income of $244,000. Now remember, these folks plan on saving a lot of money, a lot. basically the bulk of their income they plan to save, getting ready for retirement, hoping that they could at least have an income that's equal to what they make today, 20 years from now. And yet, the retirement planning calculator with a linear rate of return, never losing anything, still comes up short, very short, and says, your income will only be $244,000, but that's a 4.65% income draw off of their assets. Why 4.65? Remember, the age is the key. Mortality is the key in this case. So if they live to be 97 years old, one of them, 4.65 could be a risky income rate to start with. If there's a chance of really long life for one of them, 4.65 could be a very risky thing to do. So what's the answer? Well, the answer would be, of course, if they got to that doorstep of retirement and the retirement planning calculator and the financial advisor said, well, based on, the 4% rule, in this case, if we only live to be 85, you could take out 4.65 and have pretty decent odds that you won't die broke. Whoa, wait a minute. Pretty decent odds? I don't want risk of running out of money for either one of us. Well, what's the answer then? Take out less than 4.65. Maybe we start with 4% instead. There's the 4% rule. The 4% rule says if you might live to be 95 years old, there's a pretty darn good chance that if you start your retirement income at 4%, you probably won't run out of money before you die. But still, think about it, folks, 4%. These folks wanted $400,000. They're in that top 1% making a ton of money. They're doing great. And yet, even with their own industry financial planning tool, it says, sorry, the only way that you're going to get to that $400,000 is to, you ready for this? Save another $9,300 a month. That's all. They'd already planned on saving a lot. And now the calculator says, well, you can get to your target number if you save another nearly $10,000 a month. Well, that's just not possible. They still have a lifestyle. They still have children in college and everything else. They just can't do that, right? So my point is this. The 4% rule is out there everywhere. In all of these retirement calculators, I challenge you, if you don't have a financial advisor, go run your own retirement income calculations. Use a retirement calculator. Type that into Google, retirement income calculator, retirement calculator. Find out what the numbers look like. And I would submit to you that they're going to come back almost universally. And if you find one that doesn't use the 4% rule, please let me know. Go to personalpensionradio.com, send me a connection there, send me a message there, let me know. Find me on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, whatever. If you find some retirement income planning calculator that is not using the 4% rule or some variation of it, I want to know about it because I haven't found it yet. I'm here to tell you, though, that with the right plan, with the right strategy, where you put all of your assets and financial service pieces together in the right balance, you can actually retire on significantly more, as much as 50% more, okay? 90% more if you really plan for it. You do not have to settle for the 4% rule, but you actually have to have a plan. You've got to have a plan. So now, I want to wrap up with that. Next week, I'm actually going to take you through the 4% rule solution, or an alternative, if you will. I'm going to take you through that on the next podcast, so don't miss that. Just remember, the 4% rule is out there. It is the common practice of most financial advisors when they're talking about retirement income to use some variation of the 4% rule. I'm here to tell you, you do not have to settle for that. Don't settle for the 4% rule. Know that we're going to talk about it next week. We're going to go through the details of how could you actually set up to have a higher rate of return income-wise. Not a higher investment rate of return, but a higher rate of income returned to you in retirement. That's the goal, right? Why save for retirement? It's so that you can have retirement income. But we want a higher return of that income, not 4%, 4.65, 3.5. None of those numbers inspire me to look forward to retirement. I'm looking forward to much higher income, and we're going to talk about that in more detail next time. Now, a final thought. This month right now, there's a movement out there in podcast land called Tripod. So it's hashtag Tripod, TRYPOD, where we as a podcast community are trying to get the word out about podcasting, to raise awareness about all of the amazing content that's out there in the world of podcasts. So please share this podcast with friends, with your people on Facebook, and use the hashtag Tripod. Hashtag TRYPOD, Tripod. And that'll tag it inside this movement. Now, I want to share some of my favorites. These are some of my personal favorites that I listen to all the time. These podcasts, I like them because they take my mind off the regular work stuff. And so the first one is a podcast called How I Built This. It's by NPR, Guy Raz, really cool interviews with entrepreneurs who built amazing brands that you will have heard of, and the stories about how they did it. And it's at How I Built This. That's the podcast, How I Built This, at How I Built This. The other one is 99% Invisible. 99% Invisible, awesome show. Roman Mars actually has been on my podcast list for a long time, and that is at 99PI. And finally, Stuff You Missed in History Class. Stuff You Missed in History Class, a really cool walk through some history stuff that you just don't hear about. And these two ladies, they just dive right into it. Really cool. It's at Missed in History. So check those out. Please use the hashtag Tripod and share this out with your friends. If you have any podcasts that you just love, share them out on your Facebook page with that hashtag as well. And that's going to wrap it up today. Don't forget, take action. You've got immediate access to me, certified financial planner, the income engineer. If you've got a question, if you've got a thought, if you want to connect, remember we can connect anywhere in the country nowadays. Please do that. Take action. The future belongs to those who take action. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio podcast. We took notes for you, so if you missed any part of the show, you can find a full transcript of each episode at personalpensionradio.com. Be sure to download your free retirement income crisis report at personalpensionradio.com. While you're at it, we would appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening. Now for the disclosure. Information presented is for educational purposes only and is not intended for solicitation, sale or purchase of any security or financial product. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and your tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed here. The term personal pension refers to a marketing name designed to educate future retirees and retirees about the economic principles behind creating their own pension-like income. The term personal pension is not intended to be confused with a defined benefit pension plan offered by an employer or by a government entity.